Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Holtzmichel channel and another tool review, although this is more of a machine tool review. Ordered up the drill press G7945 from Grizzly, and we're going to do an unboxing today and just kind of a general review. If the chuck is already attached to the machine, it's going to be kind of a hard deal to check the runout on the spindle, but we're going to try and check it out just to see kind of where we're at with this thing. Now, this unit was manufactured in China, and I've harped and carped about things made in China before on the channel, and not too positively. So let's go ahead and take a look at this item, and we're going to upgrade it later. We're going to put in some decent bearings, decent screws, and a decent belt, and get this thing up to somewhat snuff to where it will actually do the job it was intended to, because machinery from China is notoriously, I won't say incomplete, but the one thing I've noticed is a lot of the times it's just a copy of machinery that's on the market, you know, in the Western world. And what they do is they take these machines and copy them. And what they do is they buy up old worn out machines and copy them to a T. That means you're going to get a machine with tolerances in them that are way beyond factory spec, because they copy those tolerances in as well. So for better or for worse, that's kind of where it's at with Chinese machinery. Now, the other thing is their metallurgy is atrociously bad. Either they don't know how to or don't want to know how to cook steel. So that's one of the reasons your machines and tools from China wear out at an accelerated rate. So anyway, enough of the rant. Let's bring the camera around here. I'm going to do a handheld, so pardon me if it gets a little wobbly on this trip here, but we're going to go do a walk around to the box because it came damaged, and the friend of mine that took this, that received the package, opened it up and took a look at it to make sure the contents were all right. So from what I understand, I just noticed it's open. He inspected it and said it was okay. So we're going to go ahead and take a look, because obviously the freight company Redaway, who got this thing over here, didn't handle this thing with the greatest of care. It says on the box, fragile, do not drop, and the other end over here is compressed. Yeah. So kudos to Grizzly for being a good seller. I got to say their customer service is good, because the thing got lost in shipment and they immediately sent out a new one. But what happens with the package beyond their when it leaves their hands is not up to them. It's up to the shipping company. And like I say, this thing is yeah, less than stellar. So let's get into it. Let's bring the camera around. Okay, so here we have from the top, and we got a nice big old footprint here, an indent where somebody had stepped on the package, and then right here it says fragile, and big old compression bruise here, and then also a big rip in the package. Sorry about the light, folks, it's not optimal. And then down here there's some damage as well. Over here there's some damage, and over here there's some damage, and it looks like it was dragged down 100 miles of gravel road, and here we got some damage. So let's see what kind of goodies we got in the box here. We're just gonna open it all up, take off this packing paper. Okay, on the very top we have the working the working table part. Then we have a bunch of hardware here. Knobs, etc., etc. We have a wrench, it looks like, some wrenches and tools. Then we have a worm spindle here, probably for the table elevator. Bad machining. What do we have here? We have the chuck. So good. That's a good thing that the chuck isn't attached, so we can measure the runout on the spindle. Okay, and here's where some of the damage is starting to manifest itself inside. Then we have a useless chuck protector. Here's the poop sheet and the base plate. So base plate looks all right. Machining is yeah. We'll put that over here. Sorry if I got my big bahookie in the way. And so here we have the unit itself, and looks like some of the box here has taken quite a hit. We're going to go ahead and remove the column first. Now all the styrofoam packaging has some damage, but it looks like it did its job in protecting the contents of the package here. So that's one good one on the folks at Grizzly. And now here we have the unit itself. And let me bring the camera around here and show you the internal damage. Now as you can see, this thing here took a big hit. When this got hit, I suspect there's going to be a little bit of damage to the shroud on the motor here. And all this seems to be okay. I mean, there's chunks of styrofoam. This centerpiece broke out, obviously from the impact. The switch, it's hard to say if that has sustained any damage, but unless I miss my guess, it's probably okay. So let's put the camera back on the tripod, and we're going to go ahead and pull the head up out of here. It is rather heavy. Okay. There's a loose screw in here. So, pick this up here, like so. Get this plastic off. So, here we have that. Let me grab this stray screw here. So, here we go. I don't know where this guy belongs to, but let's see the bottom of the motor, if that's been damaged or not. No, doesn't seem to be. It turns nicely. So the rest of this seems to be just a-okay. So I got to say, the packing did its job, despite the rough treatment of the package itself. Well, in spite of the rough treatment, everything seems to have arrived in one piece. So let's begin by putting this thing together. First, we're going to mount the column here. Doesn't really matter how you stick it on there. I've got some other fasteners that we'll be using for this. This takes an M8. And so we're going to use fasteners I got out of German manufacture, and then we're going to be upgrading the bearings too eventually. But today we're just, for this video, we're just going to go ahead and show the assembly protocol here and get that documented, and then we'll do the upgrades of the thing later on. So, and here we have a bunch of screws out of German manufacture instead of those cheapy, no good Chinese wonderful wonderfully bad metallurgy. So let's put on some other eyeballs here and get to popping here. So first we need 4 screws, and these came with a washer. Am I still in frame over here? I don't think I am I? Not quite. Let me zoom in here. This is a little too far backed off in the frame. We're going to set this off to the side for now, because that goes on last. Stay. Good dog. So here we have one of these screws. We need 4 altogether. With the washer. It's always a good idea to include a washer in these. And then we're going to need some M8 nuts, and we're going to use backing nuts that have the nylock on them. So we need 4 of those. I want to dump this all out on a big tray, but I don't have a big tray here, so I'm just kind of stuck having to yeet this stuff out of here. So, alrighty, so let's go ahead and start putting this together. Looks like the fit is going to be okay. Now the threads are a little stiff here. I was kind of wondering about that. They cut these threads with a dull tap from the looks of it, so the threads aren't real clean in the hole here from the looks of it. I'd show you, but in this light here it doesn't really show up all that well. So now we're going to put some nylocks on the bottom here. See these bolts? I picked them long enough. These are M8 by 30s, and so we're going to put these nylocks on the bottom of them as jam nuts so that these don't rattle out. These bolts never would, and then of course the rough threads in the base here will prevent any backing off of these bolts. But again, notoriously bad Chinese metallurgy combined with notoriously bad Chinese screws equals certain death. So we're just going to go ahead and use some decent nylocks from Worth, however you want to pronounce it. And go ahead and jam that on there. So, and there's our base. So now we need to put the table lift on. So our worm gear goes on the inside here. We got a little bit of Wiener slider hanging in here, so I'm going to rob some off the top of the spindle here, off the head. There's a little dab of Wiener slider on there, and we're going to need some here for the worm gear. Okay, there's more than enough on the top of the spindle there to lubricate this. Now this is a really interesting kind of grease. Super heavy duty. It's not what I would recommend for this. Give me a little Mickey D's napkin here. This is not the type of grease. This is way too sticky. And you want a sticky grease, but this is more cosmoline than it is grease actually, so not a good idea. So with the spindle on here, now you can see a little bit of a gap right here, and with the table on here, I'm just going to raise this up a little bit. I'm going to push up on a little so that when you're doing this with the hand crank, it actually goes fairly easy. And you just want to get this up here until it closes that gap and touches, because you're going to want to be able to spin this whole thing around, and you're going to need grease down here on the bottom. This is kind of a wonky setup. It works, but it's, like I say, a little on the strange side. And you'll notice that the ring has a little bit of a play to it, so we're just going to go ahead and tighten this up. And this part also needs a little bit of grease, and as you can see, it doesn't turn very well. It's just a kind of a weakness of this thing. And it has a little jam nut on here as well. Also takes a 3mm. I'm not, as you may have noticed, I'm not using the tools supplied because, one, the wrenches that they supply you with are not hardened, and so if you plan on reusing them, they just won't function as intended. And of course the screw slipped, and so now we can crank this up and down. As you can see, we got a little bit of slop here. I'm going to go ahead and tighten up the set screw back here, and that holds it in place fairly well. So here comes the head. Okay, whew, that pig's heavy. Alrighty, so let's see here. Now you can align this however you need it. That's one of the nice things. This thing is set up similar to a Bridgeport in some ways, where you can actually, you have several axes of movement. You got two right here, so you have this one and then this one as well. Then you have this one up here, so that's a third, and then this whole head tilts. That's a fourth, and then it slides back and forth. So that's 5 axes of movement that you have in this thing, which is a pretty nice feature. One of the reasons I bought it, it's like having your own Bridgeport in the shop for wood, because this is going to be a wood shop machine later on. So let's see, where did that other screw come from? We had a wild and woolly screw floating around in the box, and I don't seem to see wherever it came from. So hard to say. So let's do a little walk around here, and now we can put on the handles here for the head. We're going to go ahead and unpack these. Now these are already loose, so I'm going to have to get some Loctite later. They have a little notch in here, which is a nice feature to be able to tighten these up with a little 8mm open end wrench. So now we're going to go ahead and give this thing a little test run here and see how much runout is on the spindle. So what I did is I took just a piece of wire and laid it across the spindle over here and tied it off to the motor back there to where we get a little bit of an angle. And by how much deflection we're going to see up here in the tip, we're going to see how much runout there is in the spindle. And I already had it running, so I've been able to determine there isn't a whole lot, but I'm going to just show you guys how this works. Just turn on the switch up here, but set it on the lowest speed you have, and as you can see, there's a little bit there, so I'm guessing about 4 or 5 hundredths of runout on the spindle, so that's not too bad. Could be better, could be worse, but yeah, there is a little bit of runout on the spindle, but not tragic. So for tilting the head, we have a little lock pin here, and you back this guy out in order to get it to turn. So you can swivel the head. Let me zoom out here. So now we can pivot the head. I gotta loosen the bolt over here. Nah. So now the whole thing just kind of pivots. Sure it does. It's a little stiff at first, but it will eventually get in there. And then to just zero back at the regular 90 degrees, go past it a little bit, and then come back, run your pin in, turn it, and then it'll click in eventually. Sure it will. There it goes. So you kind of got to find that. Now you do have quite a little bit of slop here, so if you're wanting to get it dead on, once you got the chuck installed, you'll have to get a pin that's long enough and a small square, and then you can align the table to the spindle there and get that all squared away. So that's all there is to that. I was kind of thinking it would be, a little bit of a barrier that these bolts up here were kind of pivotal at that these are a gib, and they just kind of pick up the slop of the shaft up here in this direction. So that way, when you get a little bit of wear on those gibs up there, you can adjust those a little bit. So that's a nice feature there. Back onto this wire here, what I did is, like I said, I attached it to the motor back there. Of course, you saw how the head was pivoted, and laid it on the spindle. Now, when you're doing this kind of thing, you want to run the spindle at the lowest possible speed. Now, we have a nice little table up here in the lid. So up here in the lid, we got this little table of the spindle speeds to where you can put your belt. I got it on the slowest right now, which is down at the very bottom, and then the very top is the fastest speed. So down at the bottom you got 550, and at the very top 3,000 RPMs. And so you kind of got to watch your cutter requirements and adjust the head accordingly. Of course, this thing doesn't have a variable frequency drive on it, so getting the exact RPM for your tool is going to be a little bit tricky. What you can do up here is kind of get it close and go from there. Now, one rule of thumb is if your cutter requires, say, I don't know, 1,000 RPMs, you don't want to go to 1600, you want to go to 950. Always stay below the recommended speed. Now it dulls the cutter maybe a little quicker than it would at the correct speed, but on the flip side of it, it doesn't overheat it and burn it up. So that's one of the reasons you stay a little slower than you do by going too fast. So now the final step in assembly is to put the chuck on here. Now we have a keyed chuck for this particular machine. Personally, I'm going to put an Albrecht keyless chuck on this thing later. But this is a Jacobs Taper 33, and in Europe the Jacobs Taper 33s are kind of rare and they're hard to find, and yeah, they get a little on the expensive side. So what we want to do here to stick this on here, you know, granted a guy could just stick it on there, and then the problem is that it doesn't want to stay, it'll want to fall off. These Jacobs tapers are a little fickle in that regard. So all we have to do is go ahead and tilt the head a little bit. And want to clean off the spindle here just a little bit. There is a little bit of oil on this. There isn't a whole lot of cosmoline on this machine. If you just take a little bit of brake cleaner and clean it off, you're probably good to go. They oiled it really well, and so there's really no need for cosmoline. So got that all cleaned up now. So all we do is just stick it on there, take a chunk of wood, and give her a kerschmack with the old ball peen. And that should be all it takes. And that's all she wrote. So let's turn her on. And there we go. It's looking pretty good. So we'll just leave it on that. And it's kind of fickle getting that thing to fall into the slot here. There we go. Sometimes you gotta give it a little pressure on the pin to get it to go ahead and snap in there. It's a little on the picky side. So there we go. Well, everybody, that's a wrap for this little unboxing and assembly of the Grizzly G7945. Had to look at the poop sheet over here. Now, granted, it's a Chinese machine, so there are going to be some issues with it. Some are going to be tolerance issues, although I think in this particular instance they have that fairly well worked out. The metallurgy, of course, that will kind of remain to be seen, how fast some of the threads wear and so forth. From first indications, seems to be okay. For the price, I'd have to say not a bad little machine. There are some other things that I can critique on it. One is, of course, the quality of fasteners, but that's with any Chinese machine. It doesn't matter who makes it. That's why I upgraded some of the fasteners right off the get-go from the Chinese-made ones here. I got this guy here. This was for the table down here. Let me show you how. Yeah, gives you an idea. Real top quality stuff here. And then there's this little wrench here. I still don't know what this is for. The instructions manual didn't really elaborate on it too much. I was thinking it might be for the pin over here, but I'm thinking it's probably for the table because it seems to fit this bolt here fairly well. I went to a hex head, a grade 12 hex head, German manufacturer, and then of course blued, so we got a much better fastener in there for that. And then same thing on the base here, grade 12s, M8s, blued with the appropriate washers, because the bolts that were supplied didn't look like they would turn quite nicely on the base here without interference of the column. So I went ahead and just went and put those in there new, and then of course countered them, jam nutted them essentially with a nylock thread nut. So recommendations. Again, you're going to have to upgrade some of the things. This machine's going to get new bearings as well. I do not trust the Chinese-made bearings. Haven't had this thing apart yet to see what bearings are in it. Unless I miss my guess, it's probably from one of those Chinese factories in Shenzhen or wherever they are that make bearings for it. But we got little SKF bearings for it. Now this takes 6203s, 2 of them, and then a 6202 and one of those. Let me see, before I get this old cattywampus here, make sure I got everything right. And a 6201, so I got that right. Okay. Don't want to give you guys the wrong info here. So anyway, these are bearings made by SKF, made in Italy. So the metallurgy in them is by far better, and of course the runout in them is going to be a whole lot better, which means the spindle is going to run a whole lot truer. So we'll the next video we're going to have on this is probably tearing it down, changing out the bearings and all that good jazz. So anyway, recommendations. Do I recommend this machine? If for a home shop, yeah, absolutely. This thing will do the job that you have. Considering the price, it was I think $330 plus shipping. So out of Bellevue, Washington, and I think that was. I'll put it in. I'll put it in the screen below, but I think it was like $70 or $75 for shipping. So that was fairly reasonable. Now, I'm going to go over some of the other features here. The table down here is just milled, but this one is milled and ground. So you have a little bit better finish on it. And when you put pressure on it, there's not much deflection. I mean, I'm really putting some gronk on this thing. And the deflection that I'm seeing is actually coming out of the pallet underneath. So you're going to have it's a fairly stout table, so I'm fairly happy with that. Normally, when I've got other drill presses, these little dinky things, when you put pressure on the table, they have a tendency to deflect real badly. So I still haven't been able to figure out what these 4 M125 or 4 M8 by 125 by 125 millimeter bolts are for. I'm guessing it's to fasten the machine to a work table, or something. I'm drawing a blank. I don't see where this is going to be beneficial. Now, the other thing, I'm not going to install this goofy whatchamacallit. It's just it's more of a nuisance and a hindrance. These things have a tendency to be more in the way than they are any kind of a real protection. Let's see, you can kind of extend this. This is where it would be if it was on the spindle. For those of you, the safety Nazis out there, oh, you got to put that on there. Well, yeah, you should if you're afraid of the machine and never worked with one before. So You know, anybody that's ever worked around a drill press knows you got to keep your hands away from the drill chuck and the drill at all times. Not wear any loose fitting clothing to where you can get wrapped up in the tool or in the chuck. So that's one of the things you got to watch for. But other than that, this thing is just decoration, more or less. I've found in the past they're more a hindrance than they are a help, because they're, you know, mostly in the way. And once you install the thing, then you got to, you know, to do a tool change, you got to flip it up. And of course, me being a professional millwright, these things have a tendency to really irritate you and then cut down on your production time. Other than that, for the money, good little machine. The fit and finish on the spindle is okay. The ring is okay. The spindle up here is you know, got a pretty nice finish on it. Now the one thing, like I said, I'm going to do is upgrade all these fasteners. I've got a whole baggie of screws and all that jazz from German manufacturer. I think the rest of them I'm just going to leave alone for right now. The only ones that I'm really going to upgrade are these grub screws when I get to pulling this head off and upgrading the bearings. So, but anyway, overall fit and finish looks good. After sticking a wire on there and checking the runout of the spindle, it's okay. I've seen worse, I've seen better. For what it is, it'll do the job. Like I said, for a home gamer, it's good. Whether or not you know, you want to use this professionally, that remains to be seen. Mainly on the quality of the motor and the motor mount back here. This whole thing is a little sketchy, leaves a little bit to be desired. I've seen better setups. This could be improved on vastly, and so I'll probably end up later on down the road making a new motor setup, a mount for it, to where you only loosen one screw and then pivot the whole thing a little bit in order to make to tighten the belt. Because this setup right here, you got to have a wrench, and then just an overall pain in the ass. So yeah, anyway, for the money, not a bad machine. I will say this also for Grizzly, if you folks from Grizzly are watching, kudos on the instruction sheet. You guys really went all out on that. There's, you know, always that lacking info in the poop sheet here, and in this instance, you guys really put together a fine instruction manual and go into great detail. So all I can say is you guys really did a really good job on that. So you get nothing but praises out of me for that. It's well written. It's actually written by somebody who speaks English instead of somebody who speaks Chinese and then decided to run it through Google Translate and try to make an instruction manual. So then there's also a warranty card in there and all that good jazz, so I'm going to be filling that out and sending it in. Like I say, you guys at Grizzly really did a good job. Yeah, there's room for improvement, but that goes to, that's for any machine. It doesn't matter if it comes out of a German factory or a Chinese factory or an American factory. There's always going to be some little nitnoy thing that you can critique and complain about. But overall, I'd say, yeah, this thing, not bad for the money. Well, folks, that's a wrap for this little unboxing and assembly of the Grizzly 7945 or G7945 drill press. I hope you were able to glean a little bit of useful information out of this and satisfy your curiosity as to whether or not you want to purchase this kind of machine. Do I recommend it? Yep, I do. For the money, it's not a bad little unit, and so like with everything, there is room for improvement, but for the home gamer, this thing is more than adequate, and even for a professional shop, it should do a credible job. Let's put it that way. So again, I hope you guys were able to glean a little useful information out of this. If you have any thoughts, comments, critiques, or questions, by all means, put it in the comments section down below. I hate to harp and carp on this, especially in light of the YouTube algorithm. There's always that question, you know, should I give the thing a like? Now, one of the things I really ask of you folks out there who engage in the video is put a comment in there. You know, if you're going to like it, you know, give it that thumbs up, and then also put a comment in there, because that comment and like together really show YouTube's algorithm that, you know, you're engaged with the content, and that makes the video get shown more in the recommend section. And so a comment is worth like 10 likes or something like that, just, you know, grabbing a number out of the air and throwing it out there. But it, you know, a comment really does help with the YouTube algorithm, and of course then the likes do too. And if you don't like it, by all means, let me know why, so that we can improve the quality of the videos for, you know, future episodes, and you know, give it a good critique. I mean, this is a learning process for me too, and so if there's something you guys would like to see improved later on, by all means, let me know. I do apologize for the bad lighting at first. There's issues with the camera. There's an ND filter on here, so I had no idea what I was, you know, what the thing was asking me for. So I pushed the button, and now we got some good, you know, good contrasted lighting, you know, good exposure in the camera for, you know, this, for the carport here. So anyway, sorry about the you know, the startup difficulties there, but anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and with that, I'm going to say adios until the next time, and hope to see you all again soon in the next video.